Hi, it's Bonnie, and I'm coming to you with another Zentangle video. Mine is going to be talking about the background of Zentangles and how to create a Zentangle. So, Zentangles were originally designed and started in 2013. This is one truly American art form. It was developed at an art school in Massachusetts by Maria Thomas and Rick Roberts. Maria was a botany artist and she drew trees and grasses, flowers, and she drew them very organically and she drew them abstractly. And Rick Roberts was also an art student, and he saw this form and he realized how relaxing these shapes looked and how by creating these shapes, it's almost a form of meditation that you could use and you could maybe lower your blood pressure. You can, because it takes so much concentration, you can kind of let the rest of the world go by and you don't have to think about other things because you're concentrating so much on doing these centennials with all these different shapes and designs and patterns. So thank you to Marie Thomas and Rick Roberts. This started not only Zentangles, but it started the adult coloring book theme. I know that people will like me because I enjoy the color, and this all adds to it. Here I'm talking about the different kinds of paper. If you attended the colored pencil class or the watercolor class, you know I talked about the tooth of the paper and the weight of the paper. The tooth of the paper is the amount of fiber that sticks up on the top of the paper. If you run your hand across it, the rougher the paper, the longer the tooth, or the longer the fibers are on the paper. That tells you how much medium will be absorbed onto the surface of the paper. The weight of the paper is also important. Copy paper, typing paper, that's a 20 bond. That's a very smooth, lightweight paper that goes right through the copy machine. It's designed with a very smooth tooth so that it puts as little dust fibers into the copy machine as possible, but it also creates such a smooth surface that your medium does not stick to it very well. So that's why you want a heavier paper. This is an 80 bond paper that I'm showing you right here. It's a thicker paper. It's a good all-purpose art paper. You can watercolor, you can pastel, you can color pencil, you can do regular pencil. It's a nice overall paper. You can also mark on this paper, and because it's still smooth enough and it's heavy enough, the marker will not bleed through and it won't feather out. So the 80 bond paper is a really good paper to have on hand, and it does a lot of different things. The next thing I'm going to talk about are the tools that you're going to need. You're going to want to have a nice pencil, and you're going to want to have a nice eraser. Now, as we all know, the erasers on pencils wear down and they get hard, and when you go to use them, they streak. So you might want to get, this is a nylon eraser that I'm showing. A nylon eraser, when you use it, it erases clean. It doesn't leave those little speckles of fiber, and you'll get a nice, clean eraser job. Now, I have an eraser for each project that I'm doing. If I'm doing a pencil drawing, I don't want to use an eraser that I've used for colored pencils. So I make sure that I have an eraser for each item. You can also clean the erasers in between projects, and you just take your eraser on a clean sheet of paper and rub and it will take whatever's on the surface off, and you'll have a nice clean eraser. I try to keep a sharp edge on one side of the eraser so that I can get into very small places and clean up my work. Now this is a Zentangle that I did, and this is done completely with a number 2 pencil. And you see I have nice organic flowing shapes. My pattern, little patterns that fit in my shapes. They're also very organic in design. They look like little pebbles, little rocks, and it could be waves, it could be grass, it could be rays in the sun. Again, however you might interpret this, I just started this by putting different sections on the paper. I've got a flow going, whatever happened, happened. And then I went in and started adding shading. Your design needs to have whites, mediums, and darks. So your white areas would be your negative spaces. There's no color. And then medium shading and dark shading, they add that contrast to the drawing. Your eye usually is pulled through a drawing by the use of your darks. Now, you might decide that you want to add some color to your design. Again, you're going to want to use a permanent marker. Permanent markers don't bleed as a water marker will do. Once they are allowed to dry 24 hours, nice and dry, they aren't going to streak, you can't smudge them, the color will be set. There's many different tips you can get permanent markers in. Now this is just your medium tip, regular marker, Sharpie marker. Sharpie happens to be the brand that I have. You can buy lots of different brands of permanent markers. This is a large marker. It has a chisel point on it. Doing lettering, you could do a calligraphy with it. You could fill in large areas. I try very hard not to push on my marker so hard that I break down the tips or the edges, because I want to be able to do a nice sharp edge, a nice sharp line as I'm coloring. I don't want to break that tip down. You notice that young children lots of times will break down the tips. This is just a Zentangle book I happen to have. And in the book, it talks about different Zentangles and it shows different designs. Now, a Zentangle is simply taking an outside shape and filling it in with different patterns and different textures. Your Zentangle might be black and white. You might add some color to your Zentangle. And you can go online, Google Zentangles, and go to Zentangle images, and you can see many, many different patterns and designs to use. I am a visual person, and I like to have pen and paper to refer back to. So I take usually, and I'll have a book or I'll have a printout that I can go by. Again, lots of different patterns. You use different patterns to show different expressions in your drawing. Perhaps you want to do a definite shape, an outside shape. I know that with the current summer reading program, fairy tales was the thing. So maybe you want to draw a dragon or a castle or a knight. And you can fill that outside shape in with different patterns that would reflect the design in that object. So again, find something to look at, especially until you get on to working with Zentangles and how to do them. Don't let yourself get stressed out. There's really no right or no wrong. You just have fun with it. So now this is called a mandala. A mandala is usually a circular shape that's filled in with different designs and shapes. You notice this is very symmetrical, the pattern. Now this is another Zentangle. This definitely has an object to the design. We see water, we see a sun, we see clouds, and we see mountains. This is just another simple one that's a picture of flowers and different designs to create texture on the outside of the picture. And next, we'll see, this is another mandala, and this you can see is very intricate. This would take a lot of time, a lot of concentration. This is a sheet I downloaded from the internet, many, many different designs and textures. Here, this is a Zentangle that's been broken down into squares. It all is part of the same design. It's just broken up for interest into different sections. But the same design goes throughout the paper, your background. Now here we have a lion, and this is a very definite shape, and different textures and different patterns have been used to create the mane and the nose, the eyes, the ears. Definite shape, a definite object, but you have now filled it in with all kinds of different patterns. And your patterns, if you're doing something specific like this, you want to make sure that your patterns flow with the angle of the design or the areas you're trying to fill in. And that creates a nice finished product that is pulled together. Now I'm looking through, and this is my first time of using the audio and camera separate. Here we have some little birds. This is out of an adult coloring book. And you see that they're little birds, and different textures and different patterns make up the head and the feathers. And I'm going to continue on, and this one I really enjoy. This one is a boat in the water with a village in the background. And this next one are hot air balloons over the mountains, all different textures and designs. So you can have your Zentangles resemble something very specific, or they can just be very freeform. This is something that I had my students do when I was teaching, and they would trace around their hand, and then they would do tattoos on their hand. This goes very much along with what Emma did last week with her henna tattooing. And you can add color to your Zentangles. This would be a 3-color, the background, the color showing through. The yellow, it's kind of a fluorescent yellow, and black. And you can see the student's name on there. This would be another just example that I did. And this I used several colors, the orange, the red, the yellow, and the white background. Here's one that's kind of a hot pink with black. And the different amounts of black you put in might resemble a light gray, a dark gray, or a very black area. Again, you want to make sure that your design has light, mediums, and darks in it. And that's what gives you a nice balanced drawing. And you want to balance out the amounts. This is a Zentangle that my son did when he was in school. He took the circular shape. He recreated circular shapes within the object, within the outside outline, and then he filled in areas with different shapes. This is strictly black and white. He could have added color to it, and that would have made a bold statement. This is just another Zentangle that he did. Again, circular shape. Think how nice that would look put on a mat board and a black frame hanging on your wall. So now we're going to just do a little experimenting, and I'm going to take my pencil and I will press harder when I do the outline for you to see on the camera than I would in real life. In real life, I would just barely put a mark on the paper because I would want that outline to either disappear into my drawing, or I would want to be able to go back after the markers are dry and erase the pencil lines away. So now I'm just doing very random shapes within that outside outline. And then I will decide how I want to go ahead and start filling in the pattern within those little areas. So you see I've taken my outside shape, which is nothing specific, just a design, and I'm going to start adding my little patterns. Now, if you create your design with the same pattern appearing several places in your drawing, or if you create your design with lights and darks, you want to balance those out so your eye travels through the drawing. So now in this section, I put my little circles, And I'm going to color in the background with dark black heavy coloring. This will make those little white circles really, really stand out. And I just will do a small section just so you can get the idea of what this overall pattern is going to look like. So I'm leaving my little bubbles in this one white and coloring in the dark around those little bubbles. And as you are working, maybe in your mind, you're going to say, oh, maybe this looks like Swiss cheese, or maybe this looks like there could be a whole little world inside of that bubble, and maybe you would even decide then to very, very smallly draw some little something inside of those bubbles. That would be just so much fun. And now in this section of the drawing, I'm doing the bubbles again, but this time I did it in reverse. I did the bubbles dark, and I left the background light. So the white areas in your drawing would be the negative areas. The black areas would be the positive spaces. And so that way we've got the positives and the negatives working together. And now I'm just going to go to another corner of the drawing, and I'm going to take the shape and I'm just going to add some lines. So now I look at that, I think, I want to add some little designs within those areas. So I'm going to go ahead and take and just do some little line drawings. Now, for some reason, the camera makes these lines look fuzzy. And remember, that would be because of the tooth of the paper. But in real life, those lines don't look fuzzy. So the camera kind of is deceiving in that way. In real life, those were nice and straight edges. So again, I'm learning with the filming of these that it's changed sometimes by the camera. And now I'm just going to take and I'm going to fill in these areas with just random little patterns, random little shapes. And and again, you see this part, I didn't even draw in. I'm just working completely free form. And I'm just thinking, oh, this would look nice, that would look nice. And I'm just playing. And that's what Zentangles are all about, creating organic shapes. And they don't necessarily have to resemble anything. You just are using patterns against patterns, and you're using negative space against positive shape, and you're using the light, medium, and dark coloring in patterns in your drawing, and that's what really makes a drawing look attractive. It balances out the drawing, so you have these light, medium, and dark spaces. Now, if you want to do perhaps a gray space, here we're pretty much just positive, negative, light, dark. If you wanted to do a gray space, you could take one of these areas and you could put many little lines very close to each other, and this would give an overall gray effect in the drawing, and that would create a medium color. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to color in the background behind these little flowers, or color in the little flowers, and I left the center white. And so now we have the dark flowers against the white background. So now when I go to another area, I'm going to decide, well, I've got a nice positive, negative in that area. Next to that area, I might want to reverse it and put a more positive space with a more negative background. So you just play with it and you decide what's right, what's wrong. There is no correct way. It's whatever you like and whatever you think works. Every now and then, pick up your drawing, take a look at it, see where you might need to leave an area with more light spaces, or where you have an area that needs more dark spaces, more positive areas. You want your eye to flow through the drawing, so you don't want to be too heavy in one particular area at one time. Now I'm going to add some color to this Zentangle. And unfortunately, because I did not wait until that Sharpie, that permanent marker was all the way dry, when I added the orange, it pulled some of the black into the orange, which grayed the color just a little. I wanted it that bright orange. So to get that bright orange, I should have taken that space, colored it in orange first, so it had the full intensity of the pen, and then gone back and outlined it with the black. But I didn't have it that way. So this is a little grayed down. But think how nice this would look. You could add more orange throughout the drawing, or you could add just this little splash of color. You could put an orange mat around it, put it in a black frame. You could put a black mat around it. You could double mat it with an orange and a black mat. Put it in a black frame in your wall, a gold frame, and it would make a very, very striking drawing for your wall. Very inexpensive, and it would be very attractive for the eye and for anyone to look at. Again, this is a style art. It's supposed to look organic. It's supposed to look free-formed. It's supposed to be relaxing to the eye. I tend to work very dark, so I have to really pace myself, and I have to work lightly at first and then go back in and add darks. It's always, you can work light and you can add more color to make it dark. If you started dark and you get too dark, there's really no way to lighten that up. You're going to have a darker drawing. So pick that drawing up, hold it away from yourself, take a look at it, hold it up and look at it in a mirror, and you will see even more where you might need to add some more lights and darks. Now that I have looked at this, I'm going to say, oh, I think I'll just add some more lines to this area. That makes that area a medium now because the lines are so close together, and you can see the true white, the true black, and then by putting the lines close to each other, you've created the darks. Now, in this design, you see that we have worked with the perspective of the drawing. We've made sure that the waves that are closest to us are flowing, then our waves that are further away appear to be larger, and that's how it would be at the beach. You have little waves that come up on the shore, and then out into the water, the waves are much larger. We want the little village in the background. So again, because of perspective, we see that we have our horizon line where it appears that the water and the sky, or in this chance, the water and the village come together. If we were doing a landscape with the land and the sky come together. And you see, even though we know that those houses in real life are much larger than the boat is closer to us. So therefore, to create the illusion that the houses are further back, the houses are smaller. Even the boat, the front end of the boat is closer to us, so the front end of the boat is going to be larger than the back end of the boat. And so by creating this perspective, we give the illusion that the back end of the boat is going away from us. Therefore, it's going to become narrower and smaller. And that's all because of perspective and making your drawing look more real and more exact. Even the little houses themselves, the ones that are closest to the horizon line, are the largest, and as the little houses in the village go back, they get smaller. And that is drawing with perspective. That's once you learn to draw with perspective, your drawings become so much more realistic, and you'll have a better interpretation, true interpretation of what your design looks like. So now, because I'm not sure exactly what my next step was, so again, I'm just talking about perspective and just using that to to have your design look realistic. Remember, it's a free-form design, and it doesn't have to look like anything specific. You can just have just fun putting those designs, those patterns in there. Have your equipment all decided on. This design, I would definitely do all with pencil first, very lightly. That way you're going to make sure that you have your pattern, your points are going to be the right shape and the right size, and your pattern within the points is going to be even. You won't get the same effect unless you make sure that those points are even. This one, yes, would take a little more concentration to do. That's okay, because the more concentration you would put into a drawing like this, the more you can just let the rest of the world go. Your cares go away because you're really concentrating on this and making that object nice and even and showing design. This one you could add color to. Probably I would not add color to this one if it were mine. I would want those lights, those mediums, and those darks created by the patterns that I would use, the outlines that I would use, the positive space, the negative space playing against each other, and then I would have a nice finished drawing. So remember to use a waterproof marker or permanent marker, and you will really enjoy your drawing. So this is going to about wrap it up for me. And so enjoy your Zentangles and your Zentangles and have a wonderful time doing these. So